Welcome to the Programmatic Digest, a podcast dedicated to reviewing industry trends and latest news in the programmatic and ad tech world. I'm Ellen Parker, your host and Chief Programmatic Sensei of Ellen Parker Consulting, where we offer one-on-one coaching or a 6-month training and development program in programmatic media to fit you and your team's needs. So thank you for joining us. Remember to subscribe right below and enjoy the show. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Programmatic Digest podcast. I'm your host, Ellen Parker, and today we have a special guest, Nima Fallahi. How are you doing today, Nima?
I'm doing great. How's it going? And thank you for having me on the show.
We're really excited to have you because we're going to talk about our day-to-day as programmatic media traders. We're going to talk about what it is to have just started maybe in the last year in our industry. We're going to talk about your journey. But of course, before we get to those exciting and sexy questions, I think we introduce ourselves best in our own words. So how about you just introduce yourself to those who don't know you yet and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Awesome. My name's Nima Fallahi, born and raised in the Washington, D.C. area.
Nice.
Found my way up to Boston through school, and that's where I fell in love with advertising. So
Nice.
I entered the industry in the middle of the pandemic and have been a programmatic trader for almost 2 years now.
2 years. That's like almost 5 years in advertising world. Like advertising years are almost like, I'm going to say dog years, like 1 year represent at least 5 to 7 years experience because there's so much going on. But yeah, continue. Go ahead.
No. That was basically it. But yeah, advertising, it just moves so fast and it's such a part of our daily lives. And
yeah,
especially with programmatic, everything is so quick and at the moment. So I can definitely relate to that. It definitely feels like some dog years when in the advertising industry.
So if you had to explain programmatic media, programmatic advertising to my 9-year-old niece or 7-year-old niece, how would you explain it to them? What is programmatic advertising to you?
So to me, and when I first started, I was told it's like the eBay of buying ads.
That's funny, yeah.
Because, you're just bidding on it, and if you have the highest bid, you win. But that is just scratching the surface. It is way more than that. Yeah. It's finding who you want to serve the ad to, in what form, even what time of day, and so on, how many times you want them to see it. And it's just awesome. It's a lot of fun, and it's cool to see how we're reaching people in like such a digital age of a kind of like a little bit of an advertising renaissance.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, I like that answer. And I think I would like to ask you even one more. Like if you had to explain what you do on a day-to-day to maybe a 5-year-old, or I don't know if you have nieces or nephews or kids, but if you had to explain it to like a kid around you, like the kid in the neighborhood, what would you say to them to explain to them how amazing or how awesome the work you do is?
Sure. I would ask them about the last time they went on the internet or used an app on their phone and they were interrupted by an ad that popped up on the screen. And then I would proudly say, I'm the one that put that there.
I used to say I target people online, and then I realized that I don't know if I'm comfortable saying this anymore, so I stopped. I said much more. But yeah, that's a good way to put it. And my dad actually continued saying, "Oh, she targets people online with advertising." And I used to tell him like that, don't say that anymore. It's not good. That doesn't help nobody. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. Okay, so you started in the middle of the pandemic. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about that experience. How did you even land in a programmatic advertising industry? Like, did you go to college for it? If you went to college, if not, like, how did you come across this industry? Because even though we're a $150 billion industry, I am realizing unless you've worked in it or know somebody that worked in it, it is not well known on the internet. Okay. So talk to us about how you got your feet wet. How did you get here? Okay, so I'm going to take the next 30 seconds to let you know about the reach frequency, which is a course you has asked me for, okay? And I've spent a lot of time crafting every single lesson just for you. Why should you even consider? And then I'm already pretty aware of what's going on in programmatic advertising. I love your podcast content. This is where I'm here. Cool, great. But you may know somebody that really wants to learn about programmatic advertising and don't know where to start, right? Most likely you've received training via your current job or via a previous job, right? You work for an agency, you work for a partner or a vendor in the industry, and they provided the training, right? Is that how you got here? Well, did you know that that's actually the only way to get training nowadays? Like, if for any one of our friends in the digital marketing world, it's really hard for them to really learn anything if they don't know who, where, and really what to look for. So the reach and frequency course is geared for those people. It's going to take you from 0 to 100, from fundamentals to how to run a successful programmatic media campaign, how to run a successful department if you wish to be a leader or lead a department in programmatic advertising. The reach and frequency course is for you. Okay, we talk about anything from fundamentals. We talk about anything from who are the key players in the industry. But the biggest thing is that I give you my recommendation, my feedback, my guides. I was a trader. I was a buyer for 8+ years, right? And I led teams of buyers. So I'm really, really, really good when it comes to running a programmatic advertising strategy, implementing, executing, optimizing, and reporting on, and then selling some more. So I'm really good at that. So yeah, you can probably get most of this training out there. Great. Don't only stop with my course, continue training, because that's what it's all about, right? But what you won't get anywhere else and you'll get with me is all of that experience I've been able to gather, you've been able to implement. Like, this is an interactive course for you to learn anything you should know about programmatic advertising, whether you're already working in it or you're trying to work in the industry. So check out the Reach and Frequency course, brought to you by me, your very own programmatic coach. I'm very grateful for this experience that I've gone through the last 2 years, and I'm here to teach you everything that I know. Check out Reach and Frequency live, reachandfrequency.live. And now back to the episode.
Sure. So I went into college as a finance major.
That works. That works for what yeah.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college. And I was like, oh, finance, like those guys make money. Let me do that. And then after like a couple of semesters, I was like, this is just something I'm not passionate about. In high school, I took a bunch of like art classes, and I really enjoyed like the collaborative aspect of, just like working in a team and putting together like a final result. So had some friends that were older in school, and they were in the advertising program at Boston University, and they have an amazing program with, guest lectures and speakers and whatnot. So took a couple of classes and immediately fell in love with it. Advertising is, such a vital part of our lives nowadays. And for many people that even watch the Super Bowl, their favorite part is watching the ads.
The ads, yeah.
It's, it's in its own way, like become its own form of art. And knew I wanted to kind of be a part of that and, work with the team every day and kind of work to, succeed all together.
Yeah.
Love that. Grew up playing team sports my whole life, and didn't want to lose that team aspect, and sit in a cubicle. I want to be up and talking and moving around and, challenging myself. So
yeah.
But as for media specifically, I would take classes advertising based in different capabilities, and I was doing an account manager class, and was speaking to the professor, who at the time was also working in an agency, and was like, hey, don't really know what I want to do, just kind of listed out, my path there. And she goes, why don't you look into media buying?
Mm.
So summer 2019,
Huh?
I had an internship at an agency as an intern in media strategy,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
immediately fell in love with agency life. You
You
know,
did?
I
Wow.
did.
I'm kidding. I'm
Maybe,
kidding. I'm kidding.
maybe they made it seem a lot more casual than it is, and they probably did, but
Yeah.
it was nice going into the office every day, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't have assigned seats, but like the whole team would sit together and all day
Yeah.
we're just bouncing ideas back and forth. And even as an intern, I felt really welcomed in that
That's
space
cool.
and was like, this is what I want to do. I
Mhm, mhm,
loved it. And
mhm.
coming out of, as I graduated college, COVID came about. So still kind of knew that, all right, like even though I won't have that in-person experience,
Uh,
I
yeah.
still, I still, love advertising, love media buying.
Uh,
And I knew that programmatic was on the rise. Every
oh,
class that I took, they're like, by 2025 or 2030, 95% of all ads are going to be purchased programmatically. I was like, if this is what I'm doing, like this is the space I need to be in.
that's
Um,
first of all, that's really cool that you learned that in college. I mean, when did I graduate college? I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. I feel like it'll be further out, maybe 8 years ago. I can't remember. And you're absolutely right. The only type of digital marketing we learned, what I learned was Facebook, and it was at its very, very, very infancy. Like, I hate the word infancy, but like infancy stage. I think Ads Manager was just out at that time or had just been out for a few years. And so I actually started in social media and I hated it. I could not do it. And then I stumbled upon an agency that was building their programmatic advertising department, and I was hired as the first trader. And that's how I learned most of it. And then I never looked back. There's a saying that say you don't have to be crazy. We train you to be crazy. That's what this experience reminded me of. Like, that's why when you say you love agency life, I think honestly, for anybody that starts, working for an agency is such a great way to get your feet wet, to learn a lot. Like, I learned so much from those agencies. And actually, most of my experiences are on the agency side as well. And that's a great way to develop your skill set. That's also a great way to develop teamwork, because I know you mentioned that. But I'm kind of bummed that in the first couple years of your career working for an agency, I would say like full time, you didn't get to have that in office experience, because I feel like that was really key for my growth, like being able to be in office. Right now, I'm like, no, you're gonna have to pay me a lot of money to get back into office, at least a lot of money to get back 5 days. Um, but like I remember going to happy hour after work, like in the middle of the day, lunch break for like 2 hours. Don't tell our bosses, things like that. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. I feel like you're gonna get even a better experience now, because you got to learn about, like, your people now, right? Are you in office now? Are you back in office? Or are you still hybrid? How does that work?
we're hybrid, but it's starting to roll. Like every time I go, there's more and more people there, which
Mhm.
is awesome. Just
Yeah.
because I'm so used to seeing like the little icon picture in the Zoom
Yeah.
meeting, and then being able to see like an actual face and
Oh my
like
gosh. Yeah, yeah. And then you realize, like, yo, you're actually taller than you look on your picture. You're like, yeah, well, it's a picture. But yeah, so thank you for sharing. I think that's pretty dope, because I do see a lot more college programs that are including advertising in their curriculum, but more on the digital advertising, talking about ad tech, even like the term ad tech. I've seen it sometime in their programs, in their curriculum. So that's really, really cool. So before we get to the next question about like the challenges and opportunities that come with growth working for an ad agency, what would you tell somebody that's listening right now that is considering a career move? Maybe they don't know anything about programmatic advertising, or maybe they've heard but don't know how to get started. Like, what would you tell them? What are
sure.
some challenges you had to overcome that they probably should know now? just to help a sister out, like we say, or help a brother out?
Sure thing. The biggest challenge is you don't really know or understand programmatic until you like are actively trading like in a platform,
Mm.
you know?
Uh,
And
it just
and
got some power.
no. I mean like unless you're like incorporating it into like daily like communications and whatnot and learning about it firsthand, it's not like you can like in school, they taught us about programmatic at a very high
Really
level.
not. Mm-mm, mhm.
And now, like, there are wonderful classes on programmatic trading, but it's developing more and more. So
Yeah.
coming out of school, I just kind of had like a rough understanding,
Mhm, mhm.
and knew that like I kind of wanted to um, I wanted that agency life. I think agency is the best way to go for somebody in advertising in general out of school or you don't really even nowadays they have Google certifications, everything. I honestly don't like. I don't think university is essential for being able to work in the like advertising space, just because it's a lot of it's like what you can do like in a team and to push yourself and this and that. It's we're not it's not like we're like in a lab doing scientific research here. It's we're building
We're
something great.
not? What?
You know,
You mean we're not magicians? No way.
you
I add this on I make magic. I added it in my resume a few times in my career. Like I make magic with data. I think
I
this is
mean,
great because you're right. A college degree may not. I don't. The college degree may not be needed to get started in programmatic advertising, which is also a great thing because now we get to have more people testing, right? You're right. There's multiple ways to get certified and start learning what it is not. There's great content on YouTube, and this is not a shameless plug. This is my podcast, but that's one of the reasons why I created the reach and frequency courses because I realized like, okay, the only way somebody that don't know nothing about the programmatic advertising, or at least don't know where to start, the only way for them to get any type of knowledge would be either Googling, which there's a lot of overwhelming information, or knowing which technology to be certified by, right? Like the Trade Desk has a free certification now. But back in the days, it wasn't as free. Same thing with like something like Basis or Simplify. You have to be client of the technology to get that really great fundamental training. So that's why I was like, well, I've gone through quite a few DSP training in the last 10 years. And so what I did was just create a course where in the first couple modules, we review fundamentals. And like we talk about things such as programmatic ecosystem, like what's a DSP, how to select the DSP, why the DSP is so important, what's an SSP, what's SPO, things like that. And then in the next couple of weeks, the last few modules coming out are going to talk about what you and I are going to talk about soon, which is how like what type of tactics, like how to carry from a day-to-day perspective and implement some of the knowledge, like execute on that knowledge. So I appreciate what you just said because learning and self-development are big things for me. Like I always wanted to learn more. I always wanted to go to conferences, but it's not something that as a trader you're incentivized to do. They will prioritize, sometimes they prioritize account execs or, sales because it's sexy, they bring in business. But before we started recording, I said that like we're part of business retention. If those campaigns are not doing well, after a while, the clients are going to go away, like they're going to walk out. So we're just as important to the success of any agency, any brands, to make sure that we are taken care of and that we continue training beyond what we do. So let's talk about the knowledge you gathered in the last 2 years. Like, so you did most of, so first of all, shout out to you for, being able to recognize, I don't know what I want to do, but this seems cool. Taking the risk to try something new. Shout out to you because that's hard. That's really hard and it takes courage. So I commend you for that. And then secondly, like shout out to that teacher, that professor that says maybe you should just work for an agency. That's really dope that she was that a woman or a man? I can't remember if you said she said or he said, but shout out to them for letting you know.
Yes, it was something that was probably a passing comment to her, but unknowingly set me down my career path. So
right. And that's great. Amazing. And then sometime, and also I wanted to say that's great to hear for you listening right now or watching on YouTube. Like you might even be in this industry and not knowing exactly what you want to do. Like you're dabbling between job responsibilities or titles, if I may say, and you're still not fulfilled to 100%, or you feel like you're not really using your potential. So there is always an opportunity for you to grow and make career moves. Like your current situation isn't your final. So make sure not to sleep on it and to have courage to step up and ask that question and have that hard conversation. So Nima, you did so you learned most of it. So you did some fundamentals learning through college, but like can you confirm if most of it you learn while being on the job, like while being that starting with the internship and then into the trading?
Definitely. I got I guess like a good taste of it when I was interning.
Nice.
And just kind of learn more about what it actually is versus, like I said earlier, it's like it's like eBay, but you're buying ad space, but I learned it at a deeper level.
Yeah.
But
did they like let you run a campaign on in the DSP? Which DSP was that?
Oh no, not while I was interning.
Okay.
Yeah, I like got to take a peek at like their DV360 account like from time to time, but I wasn't like setting up. Yes. But
so great.
When I started post college, I went in and I was like, oh man, I don't think I know enough to get started. Yeah. And that's the thing with advertising, which is awesome, is because majority of the people you ask weren't advertising majors. They just found themselves in the industry. So I know now, I didn't know then, but like day one, everybody kind of has those butterflies where it's like, I don't really know exactly what I'm supposed to do. And programmatic and even now, I still don't really know exactly what I should do, just because programmatic is such an ever-changing thing.
Yeah.
It's awesome to keeps you on your toes.
Melon Parker. What if I tell you for $75 a month, you get to join a community with other fellow programmatic ninjas, successful ones that are looking to grow, ones that are looking to share what they know and learn from others. Would you be interested? And I get to coach you through your transformation, coach you through the skill set that you need to know in order to get what you want to get. Either is that raise, either is that promotion, either is even like a different job, right? So I'm not a recruiter, y'all. I'm not a recruiter. I'm one of you. I've done what you've been doing for at least 10 years, and I'm here to help you. And in the midst of things, some of my friends from the Programmatic Digest podcast, some of those guest hosts get to come. How many times have you listened to any other podcast and say, dang, I wish they could elaborate on this, or I could ask this? Well, you get a chance to do that in the community. Just for $75 a month, we meet weekly, we grow weekly, we learn weekly, we share authentically, just being ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, try the first call on me, DM me, send me information, head over to the programmaticmeetup.com. I know you'll be able to find it anyway. So see you next Friday. Yeah, I like that because, again, it's such a great, it's also a lucrative industry. So you can make really a good living. Is that how you say it? A good living working for the industry, and you can build up on it. And my biggest advice to anyone listening that maybe is on that journey of rediscovery or reinvention, like networking is also a great opportunity to network. I feel like when you hear somebody like, are you in you and Ethic? Oh, bet. How you doing? So who do you work with? It's almost like our own, like it's not going to use the word sisterhood because I don't think that's it, but like it's really like a good way to identify with another group. Like, oh, you're in programmatic? No way. I don't meet a lot of people in programmatic outside like the New York, the LA, and the Chicago. So I think it's a great way to network. So definitely build up your network as you're growing in this industry. And so last question before we get into the closing segment was about your What is one of okay, so we're going to talk about challenges in your day to day. So maybe something that you've overcome very recently, because like I always say that no one has made more mistakes than me in this industry as a trader, and I'm proud of it. Okay. Um, but what is do you want to share maybe like a challenge you had to recently overcome? Like for instance, for me, it was something about forgetting to add budget for the following month. And so the campaign has now run for the first 5 days of the month, right? I've been in the industry for like 10 years, but there's still small mistakes that can happen that does not determine how intelligent you are or how expert you are. Sometimes it just means that, you already know there is a QA checklist you have to do every so many, days of a campaign, and you fell through, and this is what happened. So, what is something you can broadly share with us to let somebody know that you're going to make some mistakes in this industry or in our day to day, but that's okay. Like you just gotta learn from it and then implement X. What can
Yeah.
you tell us?
Yeah, I feel like what you just said is just like an ongoing challenge. It's just because there's so many different things that you can turn on and off and so
Oh,
many different layers, the
yeah,
targeting.
yeah.
And you know what you're doing when you go on the platform and you're setting it up. Sometimes you don't have enough coffee, you just forget one box to check and
Yeah, next
it,
thing you know, that's funny.
and
You're
you're
like, I'm
like,
bidding on what? I never
yeah,
checked this SSP. What the heck
yeah.
happened?
Like, wait a second, my CPM
Yeah.
is 25. I meant to do 2.5 here. Ooh. So
Or when you're running an OTT campaign and your CPM is like $10, and you're like, I don't think there's something right here. Yeah, great times. Anyway, go on.
no, that's why I love the team aspect
Yeah.
because we're all kind of queuing in different waves and stuff. So
Yeah.
if I forget something, my team's got my back and vice versa. So
Yeah.
that's what I love about it.
Okay. If we had to stop the podcast right now, what are 3 things you want every listeners to remember from our conversation?
One thing is you can't be in control of everything. You can set up your campaign perfectly and sometimes,
Oh
it just
man.
doesn't connect as well
Yeah.
as you hope. You can
Mhm.
put in all the time researching and planning and
Mhm.
but it could
Mhm.
also go vice versa. It could go way better than you want. It's the fun part about programmatic is we're always just kind of pushing the limits and trying to grow and learn.
Yeah.
Um, and then another thing I would say is like, don't worry about knowing everything all the time. Because I
Good.
keep saying it, I learn something every single day. I'm
Mhm.
in platform or planning or trying to optimize and whatnot. And like every time I like learn something new, even though it's like something that I've kind of been doing for like over a year, I'm like, all right, like that's what I learned today. So it's like taking like the challenges head on and like celebrating the small wins, even if you like learn
Yeah.
how to optimize slightly different than what you've been doing, but you've been seeing great results after it.
That is so great. Thank you for saying that, because I think we don't celebrate the small wins enough. So make sure to, so I'm going to recap what you just said. So control, make sure you loosen up control a little bit, because you're every day, every single day you learn something new in the platform, learn something new from an industry perspective. And then lastly, celebrate the small wins. And what I actually like to say, in the programmatic meetup, which is a community of people like you and I, like we meet every Friday, I always have them like a handful of people just share like 2 wins and 1 challenge. And the reason why I do that is because, again, from a human perspective, we're so great at saying everything that went wrong. And literally, they'll start with maybe a challenge. But sometimes we'll get to that win or to that, like, what's 2 wins? And you'll be like, and they can't even tell because it's so it's so hard, right? Because it's just how we function in our brain. So I think celebrating the small wins is like it's a great way to practice how to be yourself authentically, for real. Like, it's a great way to practice gratitude. It's a great way to affirm that you're worthy and deserving, and that everything that's happening, it's because of you and for you. And so, appreciate this. Definitely appreciate this. So let's get into the closing segment where I like
Sure.
to ask a couple fun questions. So first, let's ask you, what are two wins and a challenge you just maybe went in the last month? And I also like to say that our jobs are literally from a start to end, and after that it's personal. So if you want to share a personal win too, feel free to do that. So it's not only professional wins. So how about you tell us two wins and a challenge?
Sure. It was easier to talk about celebrating the wins, but now that I have to, I gotta think a little bit more.
It's always like that. Don't even worry about it. Like most people, if somebody's listening right now and you can tell me two small wins like this and an opportunity, well, a challenge, you've been practicing your affirmation or something really great just happened, which is great for you. But think about it. Just try to see, is there something you did that maybe impacted someone else's life to better? Like, did you help a team member just by allowing them to vent, or just by showing them this easy thing you thought was so easy, but to them was like, whoa, thanks, Nima.
Definitely. I've been around long enough where I'm starting to teach others that are coming into the industry. And recently I've been helping teach some things to like new team members, and then like
That's cool.
a
That's a
couple
win.
days later I see them just doing it perfectly. I mean, they're awesome people and they're doing great stuff, but
Yeah,
it makes me feel good that like I like helped guide them to do that.
that's dope. That's
Yeah,
dope.
it's and that I mean it all goes back to the team aspect. Like if they're doing well, we're all doing well, and I think
Exactly.
that's all that matters. And I mean you could also say like it's just like mm, uh
That was one win. What's the
that was
second
one
win?
win.
Yeah. I have follow-up questions to help like someone in the community, for instance, that may stumble. And sometimes I ask them, like, hey, did you get to move your body today? Did you get to go on a walk? Did you get to hug your pet? Did you get to work out? Or do you have plans later on? Did you get to call a parent or a family member, a sister, or brother, or a mom or dad? Any of those?
Of course, yeah, I mean, I'm always talking to my parents and
Mhm.
my sister.
Yeah. I think that's a
Well,
win.
that is a win.
That's a win because a lot of family members a lot of people, I mean, don't have that I'm not gonna call it luxury, but blessing. So to me, it's a win. But you see how it's so easy for us to see beyond those little blessings, right? Like even me, I have to practice. And sometimes, so I journal every day. So sometimes Oprah told us to write 10 things that you're grateful about every day. But sometimes I get to number 4 and I cannot find any 6. And so that's when I go back and think about, what am I overlooking that maybe somebody can't see? And so that's when I'll be like, oh, well, Jade came in the office and she was playing like a good girl. And at some point she came to me and just said, Mama, and I think she said, I love you. And then she kissed me and then she kept going. And I'm like, that's the win. My baby loves me. Yes. So I commend you for trying and sticking with it during this exercise. So okay, so tell us one fun fact about yourself then.
Sure. One fun fact about myself.
Mhm. Can be anything.
Ooh,
Don't have to be professional only.
anything. Trying to think. I'm trying to think of something that's really cool for the podcast.
I'm sure anything you say will be beyond cool. So try us.
um, I don't know. Something really cool about myself.
Do you speak another language?
I kind of do. I guess I would say like I have like basic speaking level of Spanish and Farsi. I'm
Oh,
Persian.
Farsi. Oh,
Very
perfect.
proud of that. So it's nice. That's something that I did in college and got to learn and speak to family and
Yes, that's really
um,
cool.
so I
How
guess you
is the
could.
food? Do you know how to cook some of your food?
I'm really good at making the rice because I have a really nice rice cooker. um,
Okay.
and I've gotten it where you make like the rice like a little crispy on the edges and so
Oh,
good.
see,
Um,
that's really cool. Yeah, that's really dope. Yeah, I've only had Persian food maybe a handful of time. I honestly don't know where to find Persian food in Raleigh. Usually, when I get is when I'm traveling, like to a bigger city. I'm not. I'm not saying there's none here, but I haven't actively looked for it. But yeah, their food is really good. It's really
so
really good. It's
yeah.
so freaking good. Like it's amazing. All right, cool. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. I know I kind of alluded to that question earlier, but again, um, if you had to tell yourself one thing, um, from start that you wish you knew 2 years ago when you first started, what would that be? Like, what would you tell your younger self or your freshman self? One thing that you wish you knew then that you may know now.
Um,
What's
push
some
yourself
advice?
to be uncomfortable.
That's good.
And be honest with yourself during that.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like we'll do stuff just because we think we're supposed to, and this and that, and um, it's good when you're uncomfortable, especially when you're at a young age and you're able to kind of grow and learn and all of that. So
Yeah.
like be uncomfortable because like that's the only
Honest.
way to really learn about yourself and like push
Mhm.
yourself um to become, I guess, like the you that you want to be, but in a good way. Not saying
That's
like the
great.
you that yourself is right now isn't amazing, but it's
Nah,
like,
that's good. That's
you know
really, really good. That's a really good. Trust yourself to be uncomfortable. And that's really good. Like we could not end the podcast any better than this. Thank you, Nima, for dropping by. This was so amazing. We've learned so much. We hope to hear from you very, very soon. We'll have you back on the podcast. But in the meantime, how can somebody just reach out to you or get in contact with you? Because you're just amazing and thebomb.com.
sure thing. Not as active on social media as I like, but
Mm-hmm.
I am on LinkedIn. I don't
Nice.
post a lot, but if you connect with me, happy to have a conversation.
Okay.
Set up
Okay.
time for a cup of coffee, even if it's via
Yes.
Zoom.
Yeah.
And yeah, happy to connect with anybody. And yeah,
That's great. We'll have Nima's information in the show notes right below this video or in the podcast description information, and it'll be everywhere on our social media. So thank you to you listening to us or watching us on YouTube. Thank you, Nima, for dropping by. You have been amazing, and see you next week, everyone.